Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I'm happy to see you. You know what? I'm happy that you're here. I'm your host, Stevie Thomas of Ballin' Out Kennels. And over here, we really help new and beginning handlers create, perfect, and explore the art of hunting dog training through stories, tips, techniques, and that proper mindset to get you started on the right track. So here we go. So I got a question the other day from a guy that's working with one of his dogs. And it's a guy who's been in it for a little bit, not too long. I would say 2 or 3 years. And he's having trouble with one of his dogs at the moment. And he was basically telling me, like, this dog it won't listen. It won't kind of do what I want it to do. So I really started to think, there's always going to be situations where in the very beginning, if you do not set the foundation for that dog to listen to you, if you really don't cement that connection with that dog, especially hunting dogs, over here, we really talk about hunting beagles. We talk about treeing dogs. Again, I love my leopard hounds, leopard curs. I'm a big advocate for those dogs. I think they're phenomenal. And I'm really just starting to get into bird dogs. So that's also another aspect of training that I haven't completely dealt with, but I'm learning on the fly. So a lot of you guys are coming along with me as I'm learning more about training bird dogs. But with the beagles and the tree dogs, I've been doing it for a little while now. But if you really don't set that foundation when you taking a pup, when you having a pup in in that first year, really setting that foundation and cementing that connection with that dog to where that dog kind of has an idea of who you are, how you operate, the things you like. And you get to see that dog, is it a smart dog? Is it a pleasing type of dog? Is it a dog that does for itself more so before you? So it really got me thinking, what does it take or what could it take for a dog to actually listen to you? Like what are some of the things that you should put in place or really understand as a new handler on how to get a dog to listen to you? Again, I think it really goes back to that foundation that you set as a pup and that connection that you have with them. But there's another mindset that you can think about, and you would have to ask yourself if you explained or taught this dog to do these sort of things. So I developed a list. So I'll start thinking like, okay, what are some of the things that a person should know as to why this dog is not listening to them? What part or piece did they miss out on during the course of training or course of development for this pup that they missed? I think the first one would start, maybe the dog didn't even know you wanted them to do it. Now, what would something like that look like? Let's just keep it super basic. And what about coming when you call them? If the dog didn't know that you wanted them to come to you when you called them, how can you expect them to do so? Again, if they're a pup and you spending that time, a lot of pups are going to follow you around, or they should anyway. They're going to follow you around when they're really small. They want to play. That's part of cementing that connection with them. But they'll get to a certain age to where they kind of want to venture out on their own. And if you didn't really take the time to lock that in with them, they may not even understand that, you want them to do a certain task, especially when you call them. So some of the ways that I really like to work on a dog coming when I call them, I just recently, I would say in almost a year now, I really started to adopt clicker training. It's really changed the game in my opinion, because I've never used clickers before. But I really think that it changed a lot, and you can do so much in a very small amount of time using a clicker. And I really like to work on the obedience side of dogs when I use my clicker. Hey, real quick, are you somebody who's new to rabbit hunting with beagles, or maybe on the fence and trying to get started or not? You might want a little bit more help getting pointed in the right direction. Well, I got just what you need. Producing a future rabbit dog. So in this short little book, I pretty much lined out exactly what I like to do when I'm picking my puppies, when I'm training my dogs, and just some other concepts I've learned over the years. Me, Ty, with a bunch of my mentors, put this together. A lot of this information is easy to follow. I want it to be as easy as possible for anybody who's never got in with dogs or rabbit hunting with beagles to be able to produce a future rabbit dog. So if you sound like that's you, go on and check it out on Amazon and grab you a copy. And usually how I start that is I'm getting the dog used to what the clicker actually is. It'll learn that that clicker is basically it's a reward system. Whatever that dog did at that moment in time, you're basically taking a snapshot when you hit the clicker. It's just a button that, clicks when you hit it. It's basically cementing what that dog did at that moment in time. It'll lock it in that dog's brain that, okay, I did something right. And then you just follow that up with a reward of some sort. Food is really good. That's usually what I use, just as the own dog's food. And you can do it in just 10 or 15 minutes, and maybe even less, while you feed the dog. So instead of them just going to the bowl and eating, now you're, again, making that connection with that dog. He's associating you with being fed. Now you're giving him a task, so you're activating his mind and developing that side of the dog. It'll just go way further when you're out in the field. But you have to understand, did this dog know that I wanted them to do that? So with the clicker, I pretty much will let the dog know what he's doing is good. So I just let him know that the clicker is a good thing. So as I feed him, I'm clicking it. I'm feeding him, I'm clicking it. That dog really start to associate that clicker with something good. And then as you do that, few days, a couple weeks, as the dog develops, you can start to add in words or start to add in, pretty much whatever you want and allow that dog to associate those words with something good. So what I'm working on with my leopard now, Suma, and she's out of my dog Bama, and Ben Sheets Fossil. And they're American leopard, Kurz leopard hounds. Again, I'm an advocate for those dogs. I love them. I think they can do phenomenal things in the tree dog world. But what I've been working on with her is, again, coming when I call her and letting her know what her name is by using a clicker and sitting. Basic obedience is pretty good with that. Again, she knows how to sit now. Again, I coupled the command with the click of my clicker, followed with feeding her, and she picked up pretty quick that this clicker is good. And now you have to be very careful with using a clicker though, because you don't want to be marking the wrong behaviors. If it's a certain behavior that you want, mark that, and it's going to take some time to get used to when you first start doing it, as far as the timing goes. But if you have a fairly smart dog, they'll pick up on it really quick. So I started her learning how to sit with the clicker, learning how to stay with the clicker, learning to come when I call her. And now we're getting to the point where I can call her name and she'll come up to me, and she knows where the food is usually in my hand. So she'll come right up to my hand, and I'll put my hand down, I'll call her name, she'll come, basically put her nose right on my hand. Now we're getting to the point where I can basically take my hand away or hide it behind my back, call her, and she'll come over to me. Again, she'll still get rewarded with food, but that's just one little quick activity you can do. And the pups don't really have to be very old to do that. Sometimes the earlier you start, if you're going to start with a puppy, 4 weeks old, it's probably a little young. But once they get in, 3 months old, 4 months old, I'll really start to work on some of those things. Before that, I'm letting them just be puppies. But again, did that dog know that, you wanted them to do something? They possibly didn't know that's even what you wanted them to do. So you really had to take the time. It's like, how's the dog going to listen to you or know what you want them to do if you didn't take time to teach them? The next thing to think about is, okay, did the dog know how to do that? That's where that training, the step by step, comes into. Sometimes with sitting and just basic obedience, sometimes you have to actually place that dog's butt on the ground, coupled with the clicker, coupled with a few other things to let the dog know, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. He doesn't know how to do it. Going back to puppies, I have some pups here at the house. Stairs. They don't know how to go up and down stairs. They do now, but when I first started, they don't, when they're first born, they don't necessarily know how to go up and down stairs. They've never seen them before. So you have to basically, to some degree, take them from each step. Sometime with a pup, I'll do it once or twice, and they usually got it for the most part after that. If they're big enough to handle the stairs, I would take their feet and place them on one step. and I'll lift their feet, place them on the next, and so forth and so on. And eventually they'll learn how to go upstairs. They know that they can do it. Coming down is the same way. Yeah, they're going to fall a few times. Kind of funny. They'll flip over frontwards. But again, it's a learning process. They never have done it before. Loading. A lot of us like our dogs to load. Now, beagles depend on how athletic they are. They may not, and how tall your truck is or car or whatever you're hauling them in. They may not always be able to do it. But loading and unloading, especially with my leopards, that's a thing I want them to do. I want, when we go to the truck, we're done hunting, I want them to load in the box. But if you never taught them, they don't know how to load, how can you expect them to do that? One way I did with Bama, and some of the other dogs I've done it too, is again, feed time. I would basically take their food and I would place it on my tailgate. I would make sure the dogs know where the food is. They know, they see me have the bowl. I'm messing with them. I'm shaking the bowl around. They know there's food in there. And I'll put the food on my tailgate. Just enough to where they put their feet on the tailgate and they're looking to see the food and they want to get it. That's kind of where I would start. I would do that first. Just let them put their feet up there a few times. They know the food is up there. And then I would kind of help them jump up there. Then they'll start to eat. Getting over a series of next 5, 6, 7 days, especially if they're big enough and old enough to do it, it really doesn't take a long time for them to learn that, oh, if I want to get this food, I'm going to have to jump up here. Now, with the helping them up there, I really only do that maybe 5 times. Because if a dog is really smart, they'll just sit there and wait. Oh, last time I put my feet up here and the food was right there, Dad helped me up. I'm going to just wait until he helps me up. Then I'll be able to eat. If you have a really smart dog, you have to be careful with that. Because that dog is basically just going to sit there and wait. Oh, you helped me last time. I'm just going to wait till you do it this time. Then I would just sit back and watch. One, that'll let you know you got a fairly smart dog. And then 2, it'll just let them eventually learn that, okay, Dad's not going to help me with this. I got to kind of do it on my own. And I'll sit back and watch. They'll that food is there. They know it. They'll figure out a way to get up there. And then eventually just start coupling it with the word load up or let's go or whatever word you choose for your dog as a cue to jump up on the tailgate. It's time to go home or it's time to go hunting. That's usually a pretty easy one to get dogs encouraged. But it's really, the step-by-step processes of showing them what to do. If you have a dog that you want to free cast, I have a buddy was mentioning to me about wanting to free cast his dogs, and he does really good. He has leopards too, and he really trains them on hogs actually. And we were talking a little bit about free casting dogs, and he figured it out. He's a good handler. But one of the ways I like to do that, and I learned this from my mentor, Mike, is what we would like to do. If you want a dog to, when you cut them off the leash, cut them off the snap, that they actually go out and hit the woods. One of the step-by-step ways I used to do this was if I'm at a piece of timber that I'm going to hunt, I don't drive right up to there or I don't walk right up there. I hunt a lot of public, so you can't necessarily get super close all the time anyway. But when I'm training, I don't drive right up to the woods I'm going to be hunting. I'm going to leave a distance for that dog to go out. Once that dog knowing and we're in the training process, if I have a cage squirrel or a cage coon or even a cage rabbit, I would do some work beforehand and I would go halfway between where I parked and I want to say not even halfway, a little bit closer. So that dog knows that when he turns that corner, he can see either the squirrel in the cage or he can see the squirrel or the coon in the cage or the rabbit in the cage. He can see that, but he knows he have to go 50 yards. Let's just say starting point. He has to go 50 yards to go up to there and bark at it. I'll start there. So then next time I would be a little bit further. That cage is out there. Again, I'll let the dog loose. And again, it's another training session, but I'll let that dog loose and he knows he has to go in there. That's where my fun is. That's exactly where my fun is. My fun isn't by Dad. My fun is over here with this cage coon. And as you start, then I'll start putting it in the woods, right on the edge of it to where the dog knows, okay, I have to go over to the woods. There, my fun is over there. And then you'll start putting it up a tree and you start doing some other things. But the dog knows that my fun is over there. If I go out and search enough or find enough, my fun is over there. You can start doing other tricks with them as far as scent, drag work. I like doing a lot of drag work with young dogs. That's the same thing. He knows that if I go out into these woods, eventually I'm going to hit a track, but it doesn't necessarily start right away. You got to build that confidence in these pups to know that they're doing the right thing. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And they know how to do it. They know what you expect. That if I go out and hunt, I'm going to find something that I can treat, or I can find my toy, or I can find however you train them, but it's out in the woods. It's not here by dad. Again, you start with the training or the scent drag work, start lining up trees. You don't really want to make it super difficult to start with. It's building blocks. You really want to build that dog's ability to know what he's supposed to be doing. So some of those first few drags, even some of the, if I'm getting them to cast to the timber, I make it fairly easy for them, and I'm not far behind to where I can encourage them, let them know they're doing the right thing. And before long, you just keep doing that, the dogs are going to pick up on, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And that's just one step-by-step way to show them, like treeing. I have a buddy who he actually, when he has young dogs, he will himself will actually climb up a tree. He has a tree that he does this all the time with, but he will actually climb up the tree, and the dogs will be up looking at him in the tree, and he'll mess with them and call them and just make a bunch of racket, get the dogs excited, and the dogs will start barking up a tree. Now, I'm not saying you necessarily have to climb up or not, but you think that when that time comes that the dogs aren't used to barking up a tree, it becomes natural to them. There's something similar to what I'm doing with my young leopard pup, Suma, is I have basically some corn and some sunflower seeds on a tree that's in front of her kennel. And she's basically going to start herself in a way. She knows what a squirrel is. Squirrel's starting to find it now, and they're starting to be active in front of her kennel, and it just builds curiosity. And I've already caught her yesterday barking at the squirrel, just eating the corn on the ground right in front of her kennel. That's in how their dogs are learning what they're supposed to be doing. The step by step is now I would take that squirrel, I would trap it, I would show it to her, and she'll already be familiar with it. So that's just another stepping stone that we don't have to go, encounter, because the how is already kind of developing. So you have to remember, if you want a dog to do something, you gotta tell it. You have to let it know what it's supposed to be doing. You're supposed to show it how it's supposed to do it. Yes, we really like an all natural dog, but even natural dogs, you're gonna have to do some work to put them on the game that you want. Otherwise, they're just gonna run whatever they come across, which isn't bad when they're young, but you're gonna have to do some work to break them off of things you don't want them to run, so they can run the things that you do. Another thing to think about is when. When are they supposed to be doing this? When do you want them to do it? What is the timeline that they're supposed to accomplish this? Some of this has come with natural ability. A lot of people, and I was like this as well, being a new hunter, being a new handler, you have to be conscious of this. A lot of us want dogs to start super early, 6 months old, 7 months old, and it's not always the case. That doesn't mean that the dog isn't going to turn out good or be great, really. It's just a developmental thing. Sometimes the early starters don't always finish the same way that they started. They can get burnt out pretty quick, because once they get going like that, you want to hunt them. It's fun. They can get also burned out. So you have to have a realistic time frame, a realistic timeline of when this dog is supposed to be doing this, whether it's trailing game, whether it's treeing, listening and coming and calling. They have to know when. You have to have an idea of when you want these dogs to be doing this in your mind. Now, a lot of it's going to come back to breeding. A lot of it's going to come back to the mental capacity of the dog. Are they mature enough to understand at that point in time? You can do some things to encourage. We'll talk about tree dogs. You can do some things to encourage a dog to tree. But when that moment in time actually comes, the dog is going to do it when he's ready to do it. I think the timeline part of it is one thing new handlers, and myself included, have to really put into perspective and understand that you can encourage them to do it, but they're going to do it when their body is telling them to do it. Just like, I have another good friend who's working with a beagle pup right now, and getting the pup to open up on track. The pup is doing really good things, and he's doing a great job as far as keeping patient and letting the dog be a dog, letting the dog have these experiences, and he's going to start when he wants to start. The best thing you can do is keep putting him in the environment. put them in the environment that's going to be conducive to them starting on the game you want them to start on. And it's super cool hearing the success stories. And, he messaged me the other day that his dog is, starting to open up on track now. And I know it's an exciting feeling because, again, you as a new hunter or handler and me as well, when you have a dog that you've been working with and you've done all the yard work and now that dog is actually starting to open up in the field, first thought you're gonna think like, what the heck is that? Because you don't know what the voice is. It's gonna be a weird voice. It's just gonna be unnatural. You never heard it before. And the second emotion you're gonna feel is like excitement. It brings a smile to my face, and that's not even my dog. Just understanding the time that this person is putting into making this dog well, making this dog good, and getting those rewards at the end of it. Again, if you have a dog that's bred well, you have to just keep putting them in the environment and being realistic on the time frame of when you want this dog to accomplish whatever task that is. Now, you can't take a 2-week-old puppy and think they're going to sit and come to you when you call them. No, that's unrealistic. That's very unrealistic. So once handlers get to a certain age, we have to be, conscious of not putting too much pressure on those dogs as pups, because you can burn them out. And then some of those smart dogs, they'll pick up on your attitude. They'll pick up on your demeanor, especially those leopards. They're very smart and they're very conscious of that sort of thing. They will pick up on your tone. They will pick up on your body language, all those sort of things. And that's one of the reasons I love them so much, because when these dogs look at you, they're looking right in your eyes. They are paying close attention to everything that you do. And for me, that is what I like. So the next thing you have to think about too is the dog just didn't want to do it. It didn't want to do it. It had no incentive to do whatever it is you're asking them to do. It had none. So you'll have people, especially when you start hunting with a bunch of buddies, and I've had some issues with this when I first started. You have a person who's calling their dog and the dog just won't come. And you're hunting with them, you're trying to have a good time, and that's your buddy probably. And they spend more time calling the dog to bring them back than you do actually hunting. That dog is basically hunting for themselves. There's no reward center. There's nothing that, that dog is being rewarded for. He doesn't know one of those phases that we just talked about is missing. He doesn't know you want him to come when you call him. He doesn't know how to come when you call him, and he didn't know when you call him, you want him there. One of those pieces is missing. You have to up their ability and their skill set to understand what you want, when you want it, and how you want it done. That's the part of being a handler. That's the part of reading these dogs. That's the part of you stepping back sometime and like, okay, assessing what you did or what you didn't do that got you to this position. For the most part, these dogs are fairly forgiving to where if you do make a mistake, especially being fairly young, you still have time to correct that mistake if it's addressed soon enough and early enough in the process. But it's going to take you as a handler, again, to step back and think, okay, what could I have done better? What should I change? This dog is not doing exactly what I want him to. Let me look at how I trained him. Let me look at when I trained. Let me look at a few things that I'm doing that's not, the communication is breaking down somewhere in this process. So if you have a dog that didn't want to do something, and we talked about want to, the way I was taught want to is you can teach a dog to do a lot of things, but you can't necessarily teach him to hunt. The dog has to want to do it. He has to have a desire to do it. He has to have a drive to do whatever you're putting him on. There are some stubborn dogs out there that they just gonna do what they want to do. And it's gonna take you as a handler to understand what type of dog you have and make sure on the front end that you put in that work to really cement that connection. Again, I'm gonna keep saying it, cementing that connection with that dog so they understand you and you understand it. And that's how the teamwork and that's how the process continues to build. That's when you really start becoming a handler. It's super easy, and everybody loves an easy starting pup or easy starting dog. With us working and we don't always have time to do some of these things. A lot of these things that you can take care of in just 10 or 15 minutes during feeding time. A lot of it you can take care of in just 10 or 15 minutes. And I promise you, working on it on the front end will save you so much time on the back end. And you can enjoy that dog. But again, everybody loves an easy starting dog, me included. But when you really start to get some of those dogs that make you think, make you work through a process, make you develop yourself as a handler, those are the dogs that you remember. And those are the dogs that set your foundation too for being a handler. For somebody who's being new and starting to realize, okay, these are some of the things I need to do. Talking to people who may have been in it a little bit longer than you, that can share some information, share some things that work for them. And then as you get that information, you start to develop your own way of doing things. But one thing I will say though is with you building your way of doing things, you definitely don't want to be closed minded because there's usually always a way to better one thing or another. But again, being able to address and assess when that needs to be done and always have an open ear. You never know, how somebody's going to explain something to you. So shutting them down and not, having an open ear to what they may have to say about it. And you can sift through what makes sense and what doesn't for your situation. But at least you can always have that information in the back of your mind. So rewarding that dog didn't want to do it. It's going to have to be something. Dogs are reward driven, whether that's food. Some dogs are food driven. Some dogs are praise driven. Praise driven is basically they love the attention from you, telling them good job, petting them up, loving them up, talking to them. They love that sort of thing. I have some beagles who are reward driven to where after you shoot the rabbit or harvest the rabbit, they want the rabbit. That's what they want. That's their reward. They want to mouth it. They want to pick it up. They want to play with it a little bit, and then they'll be off to hunt another one. Some of them could care less. After that rabbit gets shot, it's almost like they get sad because the game is over now. But you being there, praising them up, hyping the dog up, they'll get excited again, and now they're off to find another one. That comes to you reading what type of dog you have and working within those confines of what type of dog it is. It's like they kind of say you can't fit a square peg in a round hole, because you can be banging your head as a trainer trying to teach a dog that just doesn't learn the way you're trying to teach him. You have to assess that or find somebody who will. And then the last thing I would talk about is basically there's something blocking. There's something blocking that dog from the other points that we talked about. There's something blocking that dog from doing it. And that could be fear. Fear could be a big, big thing. If you don't take the time to, again, walk them through, show them what you wanted them to do, show them how you wanted to do it, when they're supposed to be doing it, something is blocking them. You have to figure that out. Again, a lot of times it's fear. We'll talk about gun shyness. A lot of times that is handler induced. Sometimes we don't take it necessarily all the time we need to. We try to speed things up. Or I want to say, cut short or shortcut some of the options. But gun shy dogs are usually handler induced, because sometimes it can take a long time for you to go through the entire process to get them familiar, which is starting at a far distance, starting as far away as you can to where the dog really isn't paying attention to what happened, or starting when they're fairly young. So again, they don't know what loud. They usually pups pay no attention to a loud noise because they're not associating it with anything. It's just a noise. If they're fearful, going into the timber, going out at night, fearful of, yelling, some dogs cannot necessarily handle a stern voice. They may not react well to that. And obviously, you're not saying you're putting your hands on the pup or nothing or that sort of thing, but some dogs just can't handle that sort of stern voice. They may cower down or just not how they operate. Again, you as a handler have to understand there is some way that this dog learns, and I have to figure that out. That is the beauty, and that is the part of being a handler that's super cool to me, trying to figure this dog out. Fear of loading. Maybe one time it did actually try to jump up on the tailgate to go in a box, and it missed. And now if the dog fell over and it startled him, now the dog doesn't want to load because that happened to him. And you may have thought nothing of it, but it, obviously had an effect on the dog. So now you're watching to figure out, okay, this situation happened. This dog began to act this way. We have to address this now and not letting it continue, because it's going to be something you're going to have to deal with down the road. A lot of things dogs can overcome. Again, we as handlers have to take the time, assess, address, and understand what actually happened. Was it a natural thing? Was it something out of your control? To where, I was working with a dog one time, and I had a caged squirrel. I was working with a caged squirrel, and we were working on a tree that was kind of low hanging, but I knew it was on the way out. It was kind of dying. The tree was dying a little bit, but I can get the rope around the tree pretty easy. And as I'm doing that and pulling it up there, the tree limb broke. And that was a messed up situation. It didn't hit the dog or anything, but now you had this big crack from the tree limb breaking. The squirrel is falling on the ground. He's still in the trap. Now the tree limb hits the ground. It's just a lot going on. And the dog it didn't completely run away, but it kind of got the heck out of there. So now I had to be like, okay, I have to find a way to introduce this again to this dog in short order. I wouldn't let it go a week or 2 weeks, because now the dog is going to sit there and think about that situation. And you don't want them to associate that bad thing with a squirrel, or that bad thing with whatever training game you're trying to work them on, because that's going to cement in their brain, and that's going to be even harder to get over if you let it sit. So then what I did with the dog is the next day or next 2 days, I worked in with the squirrel. I started basically from zero, and it progressed pretty fast to where they could see the squirrel in the cage. They barked at it. I went over to a tree, leaned it up against the tree, not pulled it up quite, leaned it up against there. They're still barking at it. And then I pulled it up the tree, and they did the same thing, and I shut it down. So that just let me know that dog didn't get quite affected by that tree limb, but you never know. So there's a lot that can go into handling that you as a handler have to think about. And some of these situations don't always go the way we want them to. But if you're open about it, you understand that, hey, I'm not perfect at this. I'm going to build it as I fly, especially being new. We're going to work, and I'm just going to keep putting in the effort to make this dog what I can. The likelihood of that happening and you having that outcome is huge. So again, some of those reasons a dog may not listen to you, or that you may have to work on, or one of these building blocks is off, is when, they didn't know you wanted them to do it. They didn't know what you wanted them to do. They didn't know how to do it. They didn't know when you wanted them to do it. Some dogs are stubborn. They just don't want to do it. And then there's something blocking. If you can address one of those things, if a dog's not listening to you, and figure out which one it is and change that, you'll have a really good companion on your hands, and you keep going in the hunting dog training. And I'm Stevie Thomas of Ballin' Out Kennels. Stay sharp, stay real, stay houndy.